First day's play done in this series between India and South Africa, and eventful at the Eden Gardens with 11 wickets falling with 75 overs before the light just continued to get worse, and we're not even as far east as this test match series will go, but that conversation is for later. For now, we look back at the first day's play on Bajaj Finserv Mutual Funds presents ESPNcricinfo Matchday. We'll hear from Vernon Philander shortly. Sanjay Bangar. Before that, I think it's fair to say it's India's day. You thought a 90 for 1 might be on the cards, but 37 for 1 in 20 overs also reeks of a very watchful, cautious batting response by India. So why don't we start there?
I think following the extraordinary performance of the Indian bowling team, I felt that what you got an idea is that it's a pitch wherein you have to be extremely patient, wherein runs are not going to come by easily, but it's also not an unplayable surface. So patience is going to be the key, and that's where the way KL Rahul approached his innings was really good template for the rest of the members to follow, because he's been batting like that, and that's the kind of start that India wants, stability at the top.
So that wasn't as much about, okay, we may not have a lot of time to play, so we'll kind of almost play to stumps. You sense the pitch was one that made India be overly watchful in that last hour or so?
I wouldn't say overly watchful. I just felt that run making is not going to be as easy, wherein you have to wait for the loose ball, and you can't really play through the line, or you can't also play square of the wicket. So runs are going to be coming at a slightly slower pace as opposed to what we've been used to seeing in the recent test matches.
All right, Vernon, why don't you weigh in now and give me your assessment of key points from the South African point of view now that we've seen at least both teams bat on it, even though India batted 20 overs.
Yeah, and I think it was always going to be key to watch both teams bat on that particular surface. I mean, we're all highlighting the fact that it's not an easy surface to bat on. I think the run rate, again, illustrating, the toughness of the surface. We've seen a couple of balls just stopping, obviously because of the spinners. So that certainly indicates to me that South Africa is by no means out of this contest. Yes, it is India's day. I think let's pay a lot of credit to. I think it's more Bumrah's day because of the way he started today. I think initially he didn't pick up wickets, but then you got obviously rid of Rickleton, which was a key wicket, and then Markham to follow shortly thereafter. But I just think the intensity that he brings every time he comes onto bowl. I think as a batter, you're almost asking yourself, where am I getting my next run from? So I mean, it has been, a master at work today, from Bumrah. But I think every other bowler had to chip in. It's good to see, Siraj's back, with a bit of form late on in the day. But I think the surface will play a massive role in the outcome of this particular fixture. And I'll say it again. I think just looking how India, yes, they've been obviously very cautious in their approach, with bat in hand. But again, I don't think there's going to be a session where you can run away with the game. So they're going to have to bet time, and they're going to have to bet long in order to get to South Africa's score first of all. But yeah, I just feel that with the ball getting softer as well, it's going to get even tougher, to bat late on in the innings. So I think the surface is going to be a massive frustration for batters, and it's going to be key to see, how they go about their games.
All right. Well, we are going to go into those individual storylines and break it down with Sanjay Bangar and Vernon Philander. But Vernon has brought up most impactful player of the day. So it's time to bring out Jasprit Bumrah's 5 for 27 when India played 4 spinners and just the 2 seamers. We thought it will be dominated by spin, but we are going to focus for a little while now on Jasprit Bumrah. Right. Let's just keep the conversation going first on Bumrah. 5 for 27. And I wonder what an impact he's had on a day like this when we thought we'll have all the focus on the 4 spinners. What worked for him?
Straight lines and always at the stumps. That is something that we saw right at the start with Ryan Rickleton's wicket, wherein he was right there at the stumps, bowling on that off-stump line, and also asking questions with various type of deliveries. It wasn't just wicket-to-wicket bowling, but also smart use of various lengths, wherein he also pushed the batsman back, he used the Yorker, and then at the moment when the ball started to tail in, also used the reverse swing to great effect.
All right. Well, he's such a bankable player, is Jasprit Bumrah. He took the surface out of the game. He was just so good, and he is therefore our Bajaj Finserv Mutual Fund bankable player of the day. All right, let's get the fellow fast bowler to weigh in. Vernon, what was so impressive about Jasprit Bumrah today?
Yeah, I think for me, the way he creates angles, and I think as batters, in the modern day, we're so, accustomed to facing straight line bowling. I think he's got this, wonderful ability of coming wide of the crease, angling the ball back into the stumps, asking and then testing your technique all the very time. I think he has the wonderful ability of swinging the ball both ways. But again, I think the control that he's shown today, with obviously aggression, I don't think his pace was right up there, but I mean he was hovering around the high 130s, early 140s, which is still good enough pace to rush any sort of batter. But I think asking questions consistently and not letting batters off the hook. I think when you play on these kind of surfaces, it's very easy as a bowler to go straight to lines and you're being clipped into the leg side. But I think his deliveries, even when he creates those angles, he's finishing on top of off, middle at worst. So as a batter, he's giving you absolutely no rest. And again, I mean, he's got a skiddy bouncer, he's got a Yorker. So yeah, I mean, there's just so much to process as a batter. So he never gives you the rest where you can just say, okay, cool, this spell, this is what I can expect from him. I mean, he changes up. I mean, he bowls the quick cutters as well. So using the surface to great effect. Yeah, I just think he's got a wonderful skill set for the conditions that he finds himself in. But again, the intensity, every single spell he bowls, he gets it right up there.
Yeah, the control he has, Sanjay, and you can elaborate on that, because now we're seeing a lot more of Jasprit Bumrah bowling in Indian conditions. A large part of his test career was bowling in South Africa, England, Australia. But what are you noticing about his high impact, even on a day where, say, Siraj is not effective with the new ball, he's effective later? Bumrah seems to be on the money no matter what the surface, what the age of the ball.
I think what stands out about Bumrah is that he can bowl aggressively without having those attacking field sets. Like as a fast bowler, when you see 3 slips and a gully, you suddenly feel that, okay, here is a bowler who's trying to nick off batters, and that's called an attacking field. But when the field is sort of in a ring fashion, you feel that, okay, the bowlers are probably bowling with a defensive mindset. But what he does differently is that even with those defensive field sets, he becomes that potent weapon, and that's where in overseas conditions you still find a place to score off Bumrah. But on low surfaces or on slow surfaces, when Bumrah resorts to bowling with these sort of defensive fields, then it becomes extremely difficult for the batters to score. So add to the skill set, if you're not scoring runs, it becomes all the more difficult. So that's where I think he is absolutely brilliant.
I'm not sure it's an easy question, but what's the way to counter Bumrah?
Stay at the other end.
Vernon?
Yeah, I think, I mean, being a bowler myself, I mean, I really enjoyed when I can bowl at batters, when they're not looking to score, or, when they go into almost like a defensive mold. So I do feel when you bet against a guy like Bumrah, you almost need to be a little bit more attacking, take the game to him and ask questions of him, to change up. But if you're going to allow him to bowl at you 9 out of 10 times, especially on these kind of surfaces, he's going to knock you over, because he's got such a wonderful skill set. And I think, like Sanjay has said, because of his skiddy nature, he brings those stumps into play. So LBW bowled, and very often as batters, when you feel a bowler can zone in on those modes of dismissal, you start playing at balls outside an off stump that you generally would have left alone. And I think a Aiden Markham dismissal is probably a classic example thereof.
All right, Jasprit Bumrah, 5 for 27. He continues to lead this attack, and he is therefore, for day one, our Bajaj Finserv Mutual Fund Bankable Player of the Day. To unpack the rest of the stories, which is largely about South Africa's decision to bat first and their inability to post more than 159. Let's go deeper into the conversation that Vernon raised at our tea time show about the focus, Vernon, on spin so much that a lot of their undoing happened to be against the pace, especially the ball that was reverse swinging in the middle session.
Yeah, I think for me, just the way I summed it up, you play in South African conditions, and when the ball reverses, there's still a bit of bounce on offer, so you can still trust the bounce. Every now and again, when you play in the subcontinent, you don't get that bounce, so the balls tend to squat, and I think that's where guys are being trapped LBW or being caught on the crease. I think also in South Africa, because you can trust, the surfaces and the bounce, you don't need to get into good positions, from time to time. And I think when you play in the subcontinent, that's where from a technical point of view, you are going to be challenged. And I think a lot of those dismissals, especially the LBW dismissals, you'll find, the batters in no man's land. They're nor committing forward, nor back. And again, I think, that's obviously where, India's done a lot of homework and said, you know what, we need to get this ball on a good of a length, squatting into the stumps, and we'll ask some questions of their techniques. But again, I think from a South African perspective, perhaps, they need to get out of the crease, challenge the bowlers differently, drag their lengths a bit shorter. And I think these are probably points they will have to highlight going into that second innings.
Jump in on that, Sanjay, because when you hear Vernon make that point about not being able to trust the bounce, there is a different, perhaps, understanding of what is bounce that's comfortable for a South African batter. And we look at 10 wickets falling or 11 wickets falling and we think, oh, is this not an easy surface? Is it not a good surface? Is it supposed to be flat? How do you describe, from what Vernon said, the nature of the surface and how the South African innings played out?
I think it tells us that scoring runs in India is as difficult as scoring runs maybe in South Africa, England or Australia, which are considered to be the tougher conditions to bat. And that's where I think people forget that the kind of runs that you have to get on Indian soils, you have to work hard as well, because it tests your skill in terms of, again, spin. You just have to be right on top of the ball. When the ball is staying slightly low or coming at too pace, then you have to be patient, you have to wear the bowlers out. So those are also very, very critical elements of scoring runs, and that's the reason why I feel that for teams who come from outside India, it's such a challenge. Because earlier what we were taught is that if the ball is bouncing knee to waist high and you suddenly go to places wherein the ball bounces chest high, it becomes extremely difficult. Yes. But it is the other way as well, wherein if you are used to playing balls above waist high and suddenly you have to counter balls below waist high, that also is a critical factor, and it requires a skill set which is thoroughly tested on Indian conditions.
So you have no problem with the nature of the pitch at the Eden Gardens?
I think of late what we've seen, you take out the last two test matches that the Indian team played against West Indies and this particular test match, these are good subcontinental pitches. These are not rank turners. Yes, you have to counter low bounce, you have to counter maybe two pace nature of the surfaces, but by any stretch of imagination, it's not an unplayable surface.
Vernon, verdict on the pitch on after day one?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad pitch at all. I think the pitch is probably going to test your patience more than anything else. I think you also need to, we're all international cricketers, or have been there, so you need to understand the nature of test match cricket. Very often, day one, day two, you need to allow those bowlers to have a bigger say, than the batters. So sometimes you need to absorb pressure. I think that's a massive part in test match cricket that we've almost, let slide out, out the window, because we're so used to, batters getting in and dominating proceedings. So I think these kind of surfaces, clearly cry out for a bit of patience, for a bit of grind. So yeah, you're not going to score at 4 to the over. Yeah, you're going to be you're going to be scoring at 2.5 max to the over, and like Sanjay said, you need to apply yourself, and of course, play that patient innings. 100 here is probably going to take you 300 to 350 balls, but that's all part of the nature of having to adapt to different conditions that you play in as an international cricketer.
Okay, attritional, that's the word we used to use often when it came to test cricket like this. Batters have to grind it out. Sanjay Bangar made a living of this kind of hard work. He's a hard-working man. Now let's go into team selection. And we got confirmation of who's batting 3. Mr. Bangar, it is indeed Washington Sundar.
See, it's not about Washington Sundar, the player. It is about the overall scheme of things. And that's where Washington Sundar would have started anyway in my playing 11. If I had to pick the playing 11, it was more to do with who was the extra player who got in because of the combination wherein Sai Sudarshan didn't figure out. And the kind of indications that we do get from the previous test selections, you're trying to build a team for the future, for overseas test matches, using the home test matches as a foundation for the players to propel up further. And that's why I think this is an opportunity missed wherein Sai Sudarshan could have played a part.
But what I'm trying to decipher or understand is, if this was an R. Ashwin, then you would have still been, if you wanted to play 4 spinners, you would not sacrifice the number 3 batter. There is something about Washington Sundar and the confidence he enjoys by either Gautam Gambhir or Shubman Gill, where they are willing to give him something which is almost sacrosanct, the test number 3 role, even if it is for a one-off test, even if it is for one series. This is not something that usually test teams tinker with. You can play around maybe lower down the order. You see where I'm going with this. Is there more to this in terms of focusing on Washington Sundar, that he allows you the confidence to bat even at number 3, which perhaps Akshar Patel or R. Ashwin did not?
Well, if that is the long-term thinking of the team management, then they should stick with this combination, or they should stick with the thought process for maybe 4 or 5 test matches. Then we will get to know. But if it's a one-off thing, and if this combination is not played in Guwahati, then I think these questions will come back. So if there is a strategy, okay, you want to groom a particular player, maybe in this case it was Sai Sudarshan, wherein even the chairman of selectors initially said that here is a person, here is a player who we think you can give 10 or 15 test matches.
100%. He did say that we've identified him as a long-term number 3.
Yeah, and that's why when suddenly he is not there after scoring a 90 odd in the previous test series, that's where you suddenly start to think what the player would be feeling.
Yeah, that's the other side of it. That if he is a number 3 and he's going to be a number 3 in tough conditions overseas, India don't play a test series after this South Africa test series till after the next IPL and T20 World Cup. They go to Sri Lanka next. So it's a long time. And this would, I'm sure, have its impact on Sai Sudarshan's own confidence in the test team.
It will put question mark in his mind, because one thing it's always to say that okay, we are going to back you till the hilt, and suddenly if those actions are those words are not backed by actions, then suddenly it seems that whether your place in the side is secure or not.
All right. I thank you for your patience, Vernon. Sorry if I went on a bit long. It's the kind of thing we like to do in my part of the world. But I'd like your opinion as well too on India's choice of balance in this team with the 4 spinners. In comparison, South Africa did not play Muthuswamy, and I wonder how they'd be feeling about that decision at the end of stumps on day 1.
Yeah, for me, I'm a firm favourite of playing specialists in position. So that number 3 position, I think it's a massive and important position for India, and you're going to pick an all-rounder in that position. Yeah, I mean, he's handy with the bat, but ultimately, what kind of message are you sending out to, a specialist number 3 batter in that position? 4 spinners, I think a little bit over the top for me, playing in home conditions. You should say to yourself, I mean, if 3 spinners are not going to be enough, I think, is a 4th really worthy of selection. But I do feel, specialists in position, especially in Test match cricket. Coming back to the Muthuswamy point, for me, I think, he's a must. He's a must for South Africa, especially in those kind of conditions. Look, yeah, many might say he's a like for like with Keshav Maharaj, but 2 completely different bowlers. Keshav Maharaj, he's low, he's flat, he's going to go in and hone on those modes of LBW and bold, whereas Muthuswamy is a lot slower, and I think, given the nature of this surface, batters had to work so much harder to actually generate pace from a guy like Muthuswamy. Also, he gets the ball to bounce, that will bring those guys in and around the stumps into play. So I think perhaps a massive trick missed by South Africa, but also in the same breath, you ask yourself, who do you leave out to make space for him? So it perhaps would have been a Vian Mulder, but yeah, we always talk about horses for courses, and I do feel that perhaps that's the biggest trick missed by South Africa in Muthuswamy. Also, I think the lower order runs is key. I think he's the one guy that makes sure that South Africa don't get bowled out or get rolled over. So yeah, and I do feel they could have done with maybe a couple of runs from him today.
Yeah, I think we've discussed how often numbers 6 to 8 impact test matches with the bat, especially in the subcontinent. Let's quickly look ahead to tomorrow, and we had a lovely discussion on the impact of reverse swing in the middle session on RT. I'm sure you must revisit Vernon's thoughts there, but I guess, Vernon, that's what South Africa would be wondering. Tomorrow, are they possibly going to get the same kind of assistance? Will they be able to work on the ball in the same way now that it's about 20 overs old? But will reverse swing play its part tomorrow morning?
I certainly do feel that it will do. I think, with the abrasive surface, with the abrasive square around it, I think, the guys would have probably, tried to get that ball to reverse. So I think it's going to be a key session tomorrow morning. But more importantly, again, it's going to be about the control. I think, you're going to have to string a couple of good overs together, get the ball in the right zones, ask the right questions. And that's the way, Test match cricket always rewards you. I think if you bowl a couple of good overs together, I think they might actually have Keshav Maharaj, dotting up the one end and then allowing the seamers to rotate from the other side. But I think once that ball give you the signal, or the indication that there is a bit of reverse swing, you have to make use of it. I think for about 10 to 12 overs, that will probably be the window. But you want to make sure that when that ball does reverse, you want to strike and knock a couple over.
All right, Sanjay, you can weigh in on this as well in terms of India's approach with the bat tomorrow morning, if indeed we do see the ball trouble the batters the way Mohammad Siraj troubles South Africa's batters in the afternoon today.
I think from an Indian batting point of view, if there's one bowler who's going to cause them a lot of inconvenience in this particular test match, it's going to be Marco Jansen, because of the kind of height that he releases the ball from, and whether from that particular height of release, if the ball tends to stay a little bit low, then that is going to come in handy. And add to that the reverse swing factor, which Vernon was just mentioning, that's going to be coming in handy for him against the left-handers as well, because the number of left-handers that we have in the Indian setup, 5 left-handers out of which 1 is dismissed, but still 4 left-handers to come, and that's where Marco Jansen will really have to put his hand up and do a lot of bowling tomorrow, because spin from both ends India would settle in quite nicely. They'll have to use that one pace and one spin combination, and that's where I think Marco Jansen's effort will be needed, and he'll have to bowl a lot of overs.
I'm glad you brought up that one left-hander dismissed. Almost forgot about him. And while Yashasvi Jaiswal's making his way back into an Indian 11, it's now a few times that the cut shot seems to be leading to his downfall. Anything you're picking up as a former batting coach of the team?
No, I mean, I think on such a surface, wherein if you're looking to play square quite early on in your innings, it's going to bring the inside edge into play. So he was trying his chances. He's that kind of a player wherein if he wants to be aggressive, then you can clearly see a different Yashasvi Jaiswal. But if he thinks that okay, today is a day wherein I am just going to grind it out, that also is a game that he has. But on this particular surface, so early in the innings, I thought that one shot too many.
All right, fair enough. Now, there's some lovely points made by Sanjay Bangar on Kuldeep Yadav's impact, by Vernon Philander on how well Mohammad Siraj bowled. Make sure you catch our lunch and tea time shows. But I think that's pretty much a wrap at the end of day one. And what's, of course, a memorable day for Sanjay Bangar. My God, I'll remind our viewers, at lunchtime, he set 5 wickets in the middle session and boom. Everyone obliged. So maybe
should I come tomorrow or not? That's
Sir,
my
Vernon said, right? Vernon said, just give him the chart and let him fill it out.
Stay at home, please.
So we will be live now lunchtime tomorrow. Where will this game stand at lunch tomorrow? India currently 37 for 1, trailing by 122.
I think India should add 75 runs, and maybe South Africa picks 2 wickets.
Vernon.
I'm going to call 100 for 5 at lunch.
Oh, beautiful. I love it. Right. Vernon's just trying to sneak in 4 wickets himself in the morning. I'd love it. I'd love for this series to be, or this test match to be closely contested. But Vernon Philander, thank you so much for waking up nice and early today. And we look forward to your company at lunchtime tomorrow, as will Sanjay Bangar. Thank you so much for being with us. And do join us at lunch on day 2 for Bajaj Finserv Mutual Funds presents ESPNcricinfo Matchday.